Before the people of Greece saw the Persian Empire, they heard it. A distant sound rolled across the land. At first, it seemed like thunder. But the sky was clear. Then the ground began to tremble. Birds fled from the trees. Animals became restless. Dust rose beyond the eastern horizon. It was not a storm. It was an empire marching toward Greece. At the command of one king, soldiers had been gathered from almost every corner of the known world. They came from Persia, Media, Assyria, Babylon, Egypt, India, Bactria, and the distant lands beyond the empire's borders. Each nation carried its own weapons. Each unit wore its own armor, but they all marched beneath the banners of Persia.
First came the Persian infantry. Endless lines of spearmen advanced beneath the burning sun. They carried long spears, short swords, and shields woven from wood and leather. Beside them marched the Medes, dressed in decorated robes and armed with bows, daggers, and spears. Assyrian warriors followed in bronze helmets, carrying heavy weapons designed to break shields and crush bone. Bactrian fighters came from the eastern provinces, hardened by deserts and mountains. The Saka warriors wore their pointed caps and carried axes, bows, and curved blades. Indian troops marched in garments of cotton, some carrying powerful bows made from cane. There were Phoenician sailors, Egyptian soldiers, Babylonian fighters, and warriors drawn from dozens of conquered kingdoms. They spoke different languages. They worshipped different gods. Yet now they moved as one enormous instrument of war.
Then came the archers, thousands upon thousands of them. Their bows were already strung. Their quivers were filled with enough arrows to turn daylight into darkness. It was said that when the Persian archers fired together, their arrows would hide the sun. Behind them came the cavalry. The sound of their horses struck the earth like the heartbeat of a giant. Persian nobles rode in decorated armor. Mounted archers could release their arrows while moving at full speed. Scouts raced ahead of the army, while heavier cavalry waited to destroy anyone who survived the infantry. War chariots rolled through the dust. Their horses were trained not to fear screaming men, clashing metal, or the smell of blood. The wheels carried blades designed to tear through enemy formations. But the ordinary soldiers were only the beginning. Among the army moved creatures brought from the most distant lands of the empire. Massive war elephants towered above the soldiers, their bodies protected with armor and their tusks prepared for battle. Wild animals were kept inside wooden cages. Their roars could be heard long before they were seen. Enormous executioners walked beside the prisoners, carrying blades too heavy for an ordinary man.
There were giants chosen for their size and strength, men who seemed capable of crushing bones with their bare hands. And in the stories told by terrified survivors, there were beasts unlike anything the Greeks had ever seen. Creatures shaped by fear, rumor, and the darkness of imagination. To the men watching from distant hills, the Persian army no longer appeared human. It looked like every nightmare of the ancient world had been captured, armed, and sent toward Greece.
But then, the shouting stopped. The soldiers moved aside, and through the center of the Persian army came 10,000 men in perfect formation. They were the Immortals, the elite warriors of Persia. Their faces were hidden behind cloth and metal. Their movements were silent, controlled, and identical. When one immortal died, another immediately took his place. Their number always remained the same, 10,000. That was how they earned their name. They were Immortals. They were commanded by Hydarnes, one of the most trusted generals of Persia. They had destroyed rebellions, protected the royal family, and broken enemies who believed they could resist the empire. To ordinary men, the Immortals did not look like soldiers. They looked like death itself, marching in formation. Yet even they served someone greater.
At last, the royal guard appeared. Golden standards rose above the army. Servants carried treasures, food, weapons, and sacred objects. Thousands of soldiers lowered their heads, and above them all, seated upon a magnificent golden throne, was the ruler of the Persian Empire, Xerxes, the King of Kings. He wore gold upon his body and jewels around his neck. Generals bowed before him. Conquered rulers kissed the ground at his feet. His followers did not speak of him as an ordinary man. They called him the God King. Xerxes commanded an empire stretching across continents. He had more soldiers than some kingdoms had citizens. Where his army marched, walls collapsed. Where his banners appeared, kings surrendered. And now he had turned his eyes towards Greece. Xerxes believed the Greeks had only two choices: submit or disappear. But waiting beyond the mountains was a king unlike any man Xerxes had faced before. His name was Leonidas. Leonidas had not been raised in a golden palace. He had not grown up surrounded by servants. Although he carried royal blood, Sparta gave him no easy childhood. At the age of 7, Leonidas was taken from his home and placed inside the brutal Spartan training system known as the agoge. There, weakness was punished, hunger was expected, pain was considered a teacher. The young Spartans trained barefoot. They were given little food and only simple clothing. They slept on beds made from reeds and learned to survive heat, cold, exhaustion, and fear. They were taught to fight, but more importantly, they were taught never to surrender. Leonidas learned that a Spartan shield did not protect only the man carrying it. It protected the warrior standing beside him. To lose a sword was unfortunate, to lose a spear was dangerous, but to abandon the shield was to abandon Sparta itself. Year after year, Leonidas was shaped by discipline. The frightened child disappeared. In his place stood a warrior, and in time, that warrior became a king.
When Persia demanded the submission of Greece, many cities obeyed. They offered Xerxes earth and water, symbols that their lands and people now belonged to him. Then the Persian messenger arrived in Sparta. He entered expecting fear. Instead, he found Leonidas seated before him. The messenger described the size of the Persian army. He spoke of the cities it had destroyed and the kings who had surrendered. Then he delivered Xerxes' demand. Sparta must submit. The messenger warned Leonidas that Persian archers were so numerous that their arrows would hide the sun. The Spartan king remained silent for a moment. Then a Spartan warrior answered, "Then we will fight in the shade."
Then we will fight in the shade. We do not fear.
The messenger expected
Sparta is
Leonidas to understand the danger. Leonidas understood it perfectly, but he also understood something the Persian could not. A Spartan did not ask whether an enemy was stronger. He asked only where the enemy stood.
Leonidas wanted to march with the full Spartan army, but the sacred festival of Carneia had begun, and Spartan law prevented the army from going to war. Then came the prophecy of the oracle. Sparta would fall, or one of its kings must die. Leonidas knew what the prophecy meant. He did not choose 300 ordinary soldiers. He selected 300 veterans who had already produced sons capable of continuing their family lines. They were husbands, they were fathers, and every one of them understood that this mission might have no return. When Queen Gorgo asked Leonidas what she should do if he never came home, he gave her a final answer. Marry a good man and bear good children. Then Leonidas took his shield, raised his spear, and marched north. Leonidas did not travel alone. Along the way, thousands of Greeks joined him. Thespians, Thebans, Phocians, Corinthians, and warriors from other cities. Together, they marched toward Thermopylae, the hot gates. A narrow passage trapped between the mountains and the sea. In an open field, the Persian army could surround and destroy them. But inside the narrow pass, Persia's numbers would become almost useless. Only a limited number of soldiers could attack at one time. Leonidas had chosen the battlefield carefully. The Persians had brought the largest army in the world. Leonidas would force them to fight through a doorway.
When Xerxes saw the Greeks waiting at Thermopylae, he could not believe they intended to fight. Some Spartans were exercising, others were combing their long hair. They were not preparing themselves to escape, they were preparing themselves to die. Xerxes waited several days, expecting fear to defeat them before his army had to, but Leonidas remained. Finally, Xerxes sent him one last message. Lay down your weapons.
Lay down your weapons.
Leonidas looked toward the Persian army. Thousands of spears, thousands of horses, the Immortals, the beasts. the throne of the God King. Then he gave his answer.
Molon labe.
Molon labe. Come and take them. Xerxes ordered the first attack. Persian infantry rushed toward the hot gates. Their shouting filled the pass. Their archers released a storm of arrows, but the Greeks raised their shields. The Spartan phalanx locked into position, shield against shield, spear beside spear. 300 Spartans stood at its heart, supported by thousands of Greek allies. The Persian soldiers crashed into them and stopped. The Greek shields formed a wall of bronze. Their longer spears struck the Persians before the enemy could reach them. The Spartans did not fight as individuals. They moved as one body. One warrior stepped forward. Another protected him. One spear struck. Another was already waiting. Persian soldiers fell in the narrow passage, while the men behind them continued pushing forward. They had nowhere to move, nowhere to escape. The Persian army had become trapped by its own size. Leonidas ordered his men to pretend to retreat. The Persians believed the Spartan line was finally breaking and rushed forward without discipline. Then Leonidas turned. Spartans! The phalanx stopped as one, turned as one, and attacked as one. The pursuing Persians were destroyed. Xerxes watched from his throne as his first assault collapsed.
More Persian troops entered the pass. The Medes attacked. They failed. The Scythians attacked. They failed. Fresh infantry climbed over the bodies of the fallen. They failed. Persian commanders used whips to force terrified soldiers toward the Greek line. But fear of the whip could not overcome the wall of Spartan shields. Leonidas rotated the Greek units, allowing tired men to rest while fresh warriors defended the pass. Hours passed. The dead covered the ground, yet the Greek formation remained unbroken. Xerxes had expected victory before sunset. Instead, he watched a small army humiliate the greatest empire on earth. His anger became uncontrollable, and so he sent the Immortals. The Persian soldiers moved aside. The Immortals advanced through the bodies of the dead. They were faster than the previous attackers, more disciplined, more dangerous. Their arrows struck the Greek shields as they moved. Their soldiers attacked in coordinated formations. For the first time, the Greeks faced Persia's finest warriors. But the Immortals carried shorter spears and lighter shields. Inside the narrow pass, they could not surround the Greeks. They could not use their speed. They were forced to attack the Spartan phalanx from the front. Leonidas raised his spear. The Greeks moved forward. Bronze shields struck the Persian line. Greek spears pierced cloth, wood, and flesh. Immortal after immortal fell, and for every warrior Persia sent forward, another body blocked the pass. The legendary Immortals began to retreat. Xerxes rose from his throne in disbelief. His elite warriors had failed. His finest troops had been broken by men who refused to fear them. For the first time, the God King saw something in Leonidas that he could not understand. Leonidas did not believe he would survive, and because he had already accepted death,
Xerxes had nothing with which to threaten him. Persia could not defeat Leonidas from the front, so it found another way. A local man named Ephialtes approached the Persian camp. He knew of a hidden path through the mountains, a path that led behind the Greek position. Ephialtes wanted wealth, recognition, power. Xerxes promised him everything he desired. That night, while fires burned across the Persian camp, Hydarnes led the Immortals into the mountains. Greek soldiers guarded the hidden path, but when they discovered the Persians, it was already too late. At sunrise, a messenger reached Leonidas. The Immortals were moving behind them. The hot gates had become a trap. Leonidas gathered the Greek commanders. There would be no escape for everyone. He ordered most of the army to withdraw and prepare for the battle still to come. But Leonidas and his 300 Spartans remained. 700 Thespians, led by Demosthenes, chose to stay beside them. They were not forced. They stayed because freedom was worth the price. Some Thebans also remained, although ancient accounts disagree about whether they did so willingly. Leonidas looked at the men around him. Their weapons were damaged, their bodies were exhausted, their enemies were approaching from both directions. There would be no rescue, no retreat, no sunrise after the next. Leonidas did not promise them survival. He reminded them who they were. Today, no man fights alone. Today, we fight for the warriors beside us, for our homes, for our children, for every free man who will live because we stood here. He looked toward the enormous Persian army. Then he smiled. Eat well, Spartans, for tonight we dine in the underworld.
For tonight, we dine in the underworld.
On the final morning, Leonidas did not wait behind the wall. He ordered the Greeks to advance. The remaining warriors charged out of the narrowest part of the pass and attacked the Persian army. This was no longer a battle for survival. It was a battle to make Persia remember them.
Move it!
Spartan spears shattered. They drew their swords. Their swords became blunt. They used broken weapons, stones, shields, their bare hands. Leonidas fought at the front. Persian soldiers surrounded him, but still he advanced. 2 brothers of Xerxes fell during the fighting. Persian nobles died beside ordinary soldiers. The god king watched as a few hundred exhausted men continued to tear through his army. Then Leonidas was struck. The king of Sparta fell. For one terrible moment, the Spartans saw their king lying upon the battlefield. Then they roared. They fought their way toward his body and formed a shield wall around him. The Persians attacked again and again, but even in death, Leonidas remained protected by his warriors. The surviving Greeks carried his body toward a small hill. Persian soldiers closed around them from every direction. The last defenders stood shoulder to shoulder. Their spears were gone. Their shields were broken. Their king was dead. But none of them knelt.
Xerxes would not send more men into the Greek blades. He ordered his archers forward. Thousands of bows were raised. The remaining Spartans looked toward the darkening sky. This was the threat Persia had made before the battle. Its arrows would hide the sun. A Spartan looked upward and smiled. Then we fight in the shade. The Persian commander lowered his hand. The arrows rose. For one moment they covered the sky. Then they fell, and the hot gates became still.
Xerxes had captured Thermopylae. Leonidas was dead. The 300 Spartans were dead. The Thespians who remained beside them were dead. The Persian king had won the battlefield, but he had not broken Greece. Leonidas had delayed the Persian advance and given the Greek cities precious time to prepare. More importantly, he had destroyed the illusion that Persia could not be defeated. The greatest army in the world had been stopped for days by a small force defending a narrow pass. The story traveled across Greece. It reached every city, every port, every warrior preparing for the battles ahead. The message was simple: Persia could bleed. Soon the Greek fleet would confront Xerxes at Salamis. The Persian navy would be crushed. The following year, the Greek armies would defeat Persia at Plataea. Xerxes would return to Asia without conquering Greece. Leonidas never saw those victories, but his sacrifice helped make them possible. Xerxes arrived in Greece carried upon a golden throne. Leonidas arrived carrying his own shield. Xerxes commanded soldiers from an empire stretching across the world. Leonidas commanded 300 Spartans and the respect of every warrior who stood beside him. Xerxes demanded that men kneel. Leonidas taught them how to stand. The Persian Empire brought infantry from conquered nations. Leonidas brought free men. Persia brought cavalry, chariots, archers, giants, beasts, and the Immortals. Leonidas brought courage. And at Thermopylae, courage was enough to make an empire tremble. Leonidas did not fight because he believed he could live forever. He fought because he believed some things were worth dying for. His home, his people, his brothers, and the right of every free man to refuse the command of a tyrant. Xerxes believed power was measured by the number of men forced to obey him. Leonidas proved that true power lives in the man who cannot be forced to surrender. The Persians killed his body, but they could not kill what he represented. They could not bury his defiance. They could not silence his name. More than 2,000 years later, the empire that came to destroy him is gone. Its armies have disappeared. Its banners have turned to dust. Its golden throne is empty. But Leonidas still stands. He stands whenever a small force faces impossible odds. He stands whenever a free man refuses to kneel. He stands whenever courage becomes greater than fear. Thermopylae was called a Persian victory, but history remembers the man who lost the battle more than the king who won it. Remember the hot gates. Remember the broken shields. Remember the sky that disappeared beneath Persian arrows. Remember the warriors who knew they would die and stood their ground anyway. For Xerxes came to Greece believing he was a god, but at Thermopylae he met a mortal king who taught the world what immortality truly means. His name was Leonidas, king of Sparta, leader of the 300, the king who faced an empire, the warrior who never surrendered, and the legend who never died.